everyone. I hope everyone can listen to me perfectly. If there's any technical problems, please let me know throughout the chat that I'm following right now. So my name is Henrique Domingues, as we speak in Portuguese. I am from Brazil, and it's a huge pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you very much for inviting me. This amazing initiative to dialogue between different nations, between different people, will help us to overthrow COVID-19, all this economical crisis, with no doubt. Thank you, Ms. Purnima, to organize such brilliant event. As always, I had an opportunity to be in the past year in India as an international conferencist as well within the BRICS International Forum, which was a great opportunity to meet new people, to meet new ideas, and to provide cooperation and integration between not only the BRICS countries, but all the countries and all the peoples all around the world, which supports such multipolar idea of geopolitical organization. So my task here is to talk about the Brazilian situation and how we are expecting to overthrow these hard times. And here in Brazil, actually, we are facing a really hard time. Now we are the center of, we are the new center of the pandemic, the COVID-19. We just lost the control, and this is due to several mistakes made by our governors, by our president. Actually, the state governors took measures in the very beginning in order to avoid the spread of COVID-19. But our president, he chose not to fight the pandemic. He chose to fight the governors, which were providing measures in order to stop the spread of COVID-19 here in Brazil. That's why we just did not had such a chaotic situation, but it's a very hard situation. We could made a half quarantine. I call it half quarantine because meanwhile the governors were stimulating people to stay at their homes. The president were stimulating people to get out of their homes, to go to their jobs, to go out to the street. So we could make a half quarantine here in our country. And also we have one of the most brilliant public health systems in the world. It's called the unique system of health, or the unique health system here in Brazil. This provides us several, several health infrastructure in order to receive our COVID-19 patients, and not only COVID-19 patients, every health patients that we need to receive in Brazil. But we are now getting in our limit, because even though the pandemic did not reach the peak here in Brazil, we are still, our line is still getting up and up and up. But it's now worse than the United States line. Graphics and so on, they are starting to reopen the economy, to flexibilize the quarantine. And this is a source of concern to us. We are very concerned about things are going here in Brazil, because the hospitals are getting full day by day, and the commerce people are getting back to the streets heavily. And I am pretty sure that we are face a hard time due to within the next 2 weeks. But now we have to realize and to organize how can we overthrow this crisis here in our country, because because besides the sanitary crisis, the health crisis that the whole world is facing, and Brazil now is facing harder, we have here in our country a political crisis due to an open Nazi government. And I say it's an open Nazi government, because the government used to use the institutional channels, the governmental channels, to make Nazi propaganda. It's not hard to find about it in the internet. It was news all around the world, and it was a propaganda promoted by the culture secretary here in our country. The guy just lost his job, but even though the government keep insisting to repeat like short sentences from Nazi period in Germany, or keep stimulating fascist manifestations in our country. So this is promoting a huge political crisis. Besides that, we have a huge economical crisis, making our country have a hard time 2 years from now, since we had the coup d'etat here in Brazil when they impeached the democratic elected president Dilma Rousseff, the first woman to be a president here in our country. They impeached her with no legal basis. Since then, Brazil is facing a huge economical crisis. So if we combine these three crises, huge crises that we are facing here in our country, we make a very difficult moment for our people. And also not only for the working people, but also for the entrepreneurs, the smaller entrepreneurs, since from smaller entrepreneurs to the biggest entrepreneurs. And our government has just made some kind of game with the people's life, you know, because government is not providing the right kind of help to the working people. I mean, there is a very difficult method for the working people to get the emergential help from government, and also the entrepreneurs are having high difficulty in order to get the credit to keep their business running, even in this very hard pandemic time. So here in our country, we believe that we will be able to overthrow such moments just with we need our people to be very disciplined right now, to be very to have attention with the moment when they go out to the streets, because they are having to go out to the streets in order to attend the demand of the markets, which are reopening now. But more than that, we have to organize our government in the general way, because the governors, the state governments, Brazil, it's a federative republic, so we have 27 states, and then these 27 states, they're taking measures to fight COVID-19 by their own, and then the federal government are taking another measures, or even not taking any measures at all. That's why you can see such bad news about Brazil in the newsletter all around the world. We have to align, we have to integrate our government in order to overthrow such hard moment that we are facing here in our country. But more than that, we also need to improve our capacity to make international relations. Since this new government took part, we just start to seek in a blind way the international guidelines of United States of America, or even Israel state. Of course, we never turned our back to the United States of America or even Israel state. Brazil has a strong tradition of peaceful cooperation with all the countries all around the world, a strong tradition of non-intervention, a strong tradition of preserving the self-determination, the sovereignty of peoples, and so on. But now we are not used to it anymore. Actually, we took a 180 full turned in our international relations, and now we started to support. We stopped to support these principal basics guidelines of international relations. We started to vote in the United Nations against, for example, the end of the economical blockades against Cuba, and we vote against the health guidelines approved by the WHO in the last General Assembly, and so on. So this moment should be overthrown. So we will be able to get international help to get our things better. You know, Brazil will need international solidarity from now. Brazil need everyone in the world to talk about the democracy falling down in our country, the uprising of fascism, the extreme right-wing forces. They even talk about to Ukrainize the Brazil in reference of what happened in Ukraine a few years ago. So this actually it's our biggest problem in order to face the COVID-19 problems, and we are pretty sure here the ones which is still able to think by themselves, the one which are still able to see beyond the moment that we are facing here, that the international cooperation mainly promoted by the BRICS countries, which are providing for the world various lessons in order to fight the pandemic. Russia with his new vaccines, with its new medicines, China with its revolutionary method of organizing people in order to face this crisis, India with its good example of quarantine, even though we know every country has its own problems to solve, and also South Africa with its brilliant response against COVID-19. Once everyone was worried about Africa countries, African nations are teaching us a lesson how to deal with the pandemic. On the contrary, the worst example came from the most powerful countries in the world, Europe Union and United States of America just showed to the world how not to deal with the pandemic. Meanwhile, the BRICS countries, for example, and also Eurasian countries, Oceania countries, they are teaching us how to deal properly with this pandemic. So, guys, I was here, my mission here, my task here was to talk about the situation in my country, in Brazil, which now is very hard. It's a very hard moment due to our three crises combined. And I am here to talk about it with you, and also to ask help, and also to ask international solidarity, international cooperation, and to ask for you to help us with your voices, because we need now the world voices. We need the world eyes looking for Brazil, the world voices talking about Brazil, because we are facing a hard time in order to make our democracy, to make the people voice keep stronger here in our country, because they are trying to overthrow our democracy in order to put forward the destruction project. We are facing a destruction project here in our country. They just trying to sell the country to the United States. We are on our knees. Our president is on its knees in front of United States of America, in front of Donald Trump. If Trump says do it, our president will do it. They will not even think about it, and it's not good, because we are losing huge opportunities to strengthen our international relations in order to overthrow this crisis time. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much for this kind invitation. We must keep working on in order to strengthen the BRICS initiative, and not only between the BRICS countries. We have to strengthen our initiative in order to make other countries which like this multipolar world idea to be implemented close by our BRICS initiative. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are the way for development and the way for the future. Thank you very much.